G'day. What we're talking today, not so much tools, it is a used review, but we're going to talk about car head units today. Now, specifically, we're going to talk about the Xtrons range of head units. Now, there are some reviews of Xtrons head units out there. They're generally things that people have put in their car for a short period. And, you know, how's that been over a month or 2 months? This is a longer term review. This is a 12-month review of the Xtrons head unit that I've had in my Land Cruiser. It's a 7-inch display, well, it's 6.95 inches technically, but let's just call it 7 inches for ease of maths. 7-inch display, it does have a DVD CD slot in it, and I purchased it because I wanted to upgrade. This is my 100 series Land Cruiser. I wanted to upgrade from the standard head unit. This is a Sahara, so it does come with GPS, and the GPS had been upgraded only 2 years ago with current maps, but it still was on the old Toyota platform and still had a tape deck, so woohoo for that. Anyway, after purchasing it, it was too restrictive, didn't have a heap of stuff that I wanted, and the mobile GPS unit that I had, that I stuck on the windscreen, had live map updates and live traffic updates, which I really liked, and kind of lamented the fact that this standard Toyota system didn't have that. So I wanted to get rid of the head unit, and this coincided with a bunch of things. I'd been watching, videos online of some, absolutely bizarre driving behavior on Dashcams Australia, seeing similar behavior in front of me. Hadn't had an accident, but thought it would be a good thing to fit a dash cam. So I kind of came around to this thinking, I want to stick a dash cam in the car. I want to upgrade the head unit. I'd like to be able to play CDs and DVDs in the car. I want to be able to have, ideally, I want to connect my phone to the stereo. An Android system would be nice. I want, if I get an Android system, that means I can run Google Maps or Waze or similar. And I want to be able to, have my Bluetooth hands-free and all that good stuff that you would expect of a modern head unit in the car. Now, when I added all that up and said, okay, traditionally, what I've installed is I've been quite a fan of the reliability and performance of Alpine head units and Pioneer head units. I have used other brands as well in the past, like Clarion and Sony. I'm not really brand centric, but typically I would start with Alpine or Pioneer and go from there because they're a reasonably safe bet. Sure, not all their products are great, but they're a reasonably safe bet. So I started to have a look at brand name head units, and that was in the thousands of dollars. It was well over $1,500 to get every feature that I wanted, and I went, it's not worth it for that to me. Not on a $25,000 car. I'm not, by the time I change the speakers over, put a head unit in it, I'm approaching 10% of the price of the vehicle, and that is just not worth it. And one of the big problems I found, so I said, okay, I'm gonna have to sacrifice features. So what can I get it to bring it down to sub $500? And I was sacrificing features. GPS immediately goes, you're not gonna get digital radio more than likely. And you bring in the price down, you're getting smaller screens. And the principal thing I didn't like about the cheaper head units from brands like Sony, Pioneer and such was those illuminated buttons on the side of the display that make it look, in my opinion, cheap, flimsy and aftermarket. I like a clean factory look in my head units. So that's what I was really pursuing. I wanted something to look clean. I didn't want a big Pioneer logo. I didn't want a big Sony logo. Just something that looked like it was supposed to be there. So I haven't had a good history of engaging with people who have fit cheap head units. Generally something goes wrong, or they look crap, they don't perform well. So I'd kind of steered away from that, but in my frustration that I couldn't find a head unit that looked the way I wanted it to, I did start looking at some cheaper brands, and I came across 2 brands that I had a look at, and pretty much the reason that I decided on the Xtrons series was the 2 brands that I brought it down to. One that seemed to have slightly better reviews than Xtrons, was that the other brand had a big logo on the bottom of the head unit. I didn't want that, whereas Xtrons didn't have any logos on it. There wasn't anything on the unit that would identify it other than factory. Obviously, this is a 2003 year model car, having Android Auto in it. that's not going to be something that the car came out with. It's definitely aftermarket, but at least the head unit looks at home in there. There's not big, cheap plastic illuminated buttons that are too bright at night, and then, they're kind of superfluous during the day. And I don't have to trade off having buttons down the side of the head unit and give me a smaller screen. I want maximum screen. That's what I got with this. But I was very concerned about what the longevity of what it would be, especially having all touchscreen. All touchscreen. Is the touchscreen going to hold up? Is the head unit going to hold up? Is everything going to cycle and operate as it should? Because the value in this head unit was just astonishing. What I'd originally looked to get was I had jumped to, I'll get one of these iPad tablet style on dash head units. So it's in dash double din mount with a big tablet mounted at the front. Xtrons make one of those, and it's a very large tablet style head unit. The reason I didn't go with that head unit, that's the one I wanted, was principally because on the 100 series Land Cruiser, above the head unit, the top of the dash pad sticks out, it protrudes further out. So if that's the fascia of the head unit, the dash pad sticks out with a lip over the surface where the double din head unit would be. So I worked out that if I put the head unit in based on how far it protruded from the actual double din mount, that it would probably, best case scenario, be vertical. It would be completely straight up and down. Now, as a driver, I'm being able to tilt it towards me and tilt it back so I can get an angle to see the screen. That's what the head unit's designed to do. But in this car, with that lip of the dash pad, it was unlikely that I was going to be able to do that. And I didn't want it straight up and down. No point having a head unit you can't see and easily operate from the driver's seat. There's absolutely no point in that. So I decided that I'm going to have to concede there. I'm not going to get the tablet style one, and I'll get the biggest in-dash head unit as I could. I wanted the CD slot because my wife is quite a fan of CDs, and we still have CDs in our household. Yeah, I know most people have migrated to iTunes or Google Play or whatever online. That's not our household, so I wanted the CD slot. You can get this same head unit without the CD slot. It's going to bump it up to a 7-inch screen as opposed to 6.95 inches. It's going to bump it up to 7 inches. So you can do that if you wish to. We've got the CD slot. If you don't want the CD slot, that's fine. That's just what we choose to do. I guess I'm old school in that regard. So when I weighed all this out, it gave me my CD slot. It had an integrated dash cam, so I could mount the dash cam and have it play on the screen. That was a huge plus. It had Android operating system, which was good, so I could put all my apps on it, and that was what was going to drive my map system. So I could use Google Maps or Waze or whatever I wanted to use as an Android map-based system. So that was a real positive. It had a digital radio, which I live regionally in Australia, no digital radio out here, so that's kind of neither here nor there. I suppose there's an element of future-proofing in that for me. So that's good. It's got a reversing camera in it. This doesn't have a reversing camera standard. So that was a good thing to be able to stick a reversing camera on it and have it integrated into the dash. So I really, really like that. So, but that's fairly standard. Most head units would have a reversing camera feature for it now. But everything came with the head unit with the exception of the dash cam. I had to buy the dash cam separately. It was $25. That's on top of the price of the head unit. But when I piled all that together and all the features that the head unit had, and it was going to look nice and clean, no logos on it, it looked like a factory integrated head unit. For the price of $270, including the dash cam, I get the whole package for $300. I couldn't get near that with a brand name unit. But I recognized that there was going to be a risk. There was a definite risk involved that I bought this thing and it failed to function long term. But I was willing to take that risk and I purchased it. So this is the first one that I installed in the Land Cruiser. I'll give you a bit of a look at it. So you just have to excuse the bit of the wobbly camera, but we'll have a closer look at it so you can see it installed. I've been really happy with it. So it's been in there for coming up to 12 months now. So 12 months with it. So, and for 12 months, it's functioned great. Really, really good. Very, very happy with it. When I mounted the dash cam, I mounted it on the back window glass, so I had to get a USB extender and run it. You know, I took the whole interior out and ran it all through. It's got an amplifier in it now. It's got upgraded speakers, which might be the subject of another video. We'll worry about that another day. But the dash cam is mounted on the rear window. Now, the reason I did that was so that I can put the rear view dash cam up on the dash and see it live. So with a wagon, you've got full of kids everywhere. If your rear vision mirror for some reason gets obstructed, you can switch the dash to dash cam and you can see perfectly out the back window. Even if you've got stuff piled high in the back, you're not going to obstruct your view. You've got a perfect view of the highway behind you. And that's worked a real treat. It's been working perfectly. And then for the front, I've hardwired a separate dash cam to the front window glass that you just turn on with the key. Away you go. Haven't had any problems there. Haven't had any reason to extract any video from the dash cam, but all the files are there on the memory card, on the SD card. So that should be fairly straightforward, but haven't needed to do anything like that. But for now, very, very happy with the situation. In fact, I like it so much having that on the back. When I bought a canopy for my Ram 3500, my Ram 3500 has a long box on it. It's 2.4 meters length of tray, 2.4 meters length of canopy. When you're in the driver's seat in the dual cab, you're trying to see through the back seat, through passengers' heads, and then down through the canopy out the back window. You can do it, no problems, but sometimes if it's raining or there's a bit of dust or muck that's flown up onto the back window, can make it a little harder to see. So by putting the dash cam on the back window glass of the canopy, it gives me the option to put that visual up on the dash. So I've effectively got, a second rear vision mirror option, and that's worked really well. But installation of the Xtrons head unit is probably more difficult than any other head unit. The only difference with it has been is that there's so many ancillary things with it. You've got your GPS sensor, which you can mount under the dash or on the dash, depending on what you want to do. So you've got to find a home for that. You've got to wire your dash camera. If you want to wire it into an amplifier, that's standard of any head unit. But certainly I hadn't had to worry about GPS sensors, dash cams before. That's all new. And then I've run the other USB inputs, which is for a 3G USB modem if you want to do that, or 4G USB modem, and a USB input for your phone or Android or iOS device. If you want to plug it straight into the head unit, you can do that. Those outlets I put in the glove box. And that's all worked fairly fine. In terms of wiring it in, it's not really any more complicated than any other head unit. What you do, the Xtrons head unit, in terms of its wiring loom, it terminates in an ISO plug, which is really good. That's a good thing. So if you want to cheat, do it the easy way. And we're doing this video in Australia, so if you're in Australia and you want to do an easy install of a head unit into your car, chances are you'll go to Autobarn or Auto Pro or Super Cheap Auto or wherever, and you'll buy an Air Pro patch harness. And what that does is that you'll undo your factory head unit, take it away, and then you'll plug in a Air Pro patch lead that converts your factory harness to your head unit harness. Now, previously when I've done that, I've had to buy two. I've gone from the car's harness to ISO, and then go ISO to Sony or to Pioneer or to Alpine, and then you plug it into the back of the head unit. And that's you need two patch leads to pull it off. With the Xtrons unit, because the Xtron unit terminates in ISO, all you need is the patch lead from the factory harness on whatever car you're installing it in, and then it'll terminate in ISO, and then you just plug it into the Xtrons wiring harness, which will save you a lot of time. The problem with patch leads, and it's just how they are, is that it adds that much of extra wiring bulk and two extra plugs. Whereas previously the head unit would plug straight into the loom. You've got a patch lead in between. So you can add a little bit of bulk, and then you've got to find a home for all that wiring behind the head unit. That's just how it goes. But with a patch lead having to go to ISO, you do save having to buy 2 patch leads, you buy 1 instead of 2, which you have to do for some head units, unless you want to cut the factory loom off and solder it together. That's how I used to do it, that's how I learned to do it, but that was a heap easier when you were doing that on a VC Commodore or a HQ Holden. You've only got power, earth, AC, and then you've got your speaker wires, and that's it. Nowadays, you've got all these extra features. You might have antenna up and down, and you know, all these other little bits and pieces that you want to wire into your head unit as well, so that it's reading off the car accurately. The other thing that the head unit comes with, that you don't have to get, but it comes with the ability to go to an OBD2 reader. So if you want to get a Bluetooth, and Xtrons make them, I've got an Xtrons OBD reader. You plug it into your OBD port. This is an 03 Land Cruiser. They don't go on OBD2. It's an OBD port, but it's a Toyota OBD system. But on the Torque app, you can reprogram it to read it. It won't pick up everything, but it picks up most things. It picks up your RPM. It picks up a lot of your boost. It picks up your speed. It picks up a few extra bits and pieces that you can basically read off your head unit with an OBD Bluetooth reader. It's easy to hook up, and you can keep an eye on things if you want to. If you want to do that while you're driving along, or you just want to look really cool by having a heap of dash additional gauges on your head unit. So 12 months in, I've actually, for the money, I don't think you can beat it. The thing that would have brought me around to saying don't buy this head unit is if I'd had a heap of faults. If I'd had a heap of faults in the last 12 months, then I'd be going, oh geez, you know, cheap brand, obviously cheap head unit, has some hairs on it, stay away. My actual experience has been very positive. I've found it great. Hasn't given me any trouble. One of the head units has been, and when I say one, that's my biggest endorsement. So all cars that I own, I've got the Hilux, the Ram, and the Land Cruiser. Hilux is used on the farm. The Ram, what I principally drive around, and this is my wife's principal conveyance. All 3 of them have the same head unit. I liked it so much. All 3 of them had the original factory head unit, and I converted them all over to the Xtrons units because I liked them so much. And for the money, I found them very good. In fact, the head unit on this car was basically free because I bought this for $300 with the dash cam, and I sold the factory head unit, the GPS unit, the upgraded GPS disc, and the CD stacker, the whole, you know, basic installation, you know, from factory from Toyota, including all the mounting brackets and everything from under the seats. I sold all that for $300. So it was basically a clean swap to the Xtrons unit. So that worked out pretty well. So this basically got a head unit for free, and this head unit's far more flexible than the factory Toyota one. And for interest's sake, you lose the stacker. Not that I, you know, really feel the need to run a stacker in my car, but you save a heap of weight. Like that GPS unit, the stacker, all the steel mounting plates under the seat, all that came out. The head unit itself was heavier than this one. So actually, I mean, it's not weight enough to say that I can put another, you know, 100 kilos on the tow ball or in the cabin, but you know, the old stuff was pretty heavy. So all that's come out, and it's freed up a heap of room, and it's given me a spot to mount an amplifier under the passenger seat where the old GPS unit was on the passenger side, stacker was on the driver's side. So where that has been freed up, I've been able to put a 4-channel amplifier under the seat to give us a little bit more speaker punch. So easy enough to install. One downside with the head unit is that it doesn't have an amplifier power wire, which is very strange. I don't know why, but the wiring loom has outputs for your amplifier, but it doesn't have an amplifier power wire, and I can't figure that out why that wouldn't be there. I've been backwards and forwards through the manual that many times. I can't find it, so I've wired it in to the head unit on a different wire, so it just comes on with the head unit, whether whether it's playing music or not. It just, when the head unit's on, the amplifier will turn on. I just splice the power wire into another wire at the back of the head unit. No big deal there, but that's what I had to do. In the Hilux, these don't have steering wheel. The Ram and the Land Cruiser are both old enough. They don't have audio steering wheel controls, which was fine until I started driving my 2014 Hilux around more frequently, which does have steering wheel controls. And as soon as I started driving that around, the fact that this and the Ram doesn't have steering wheel controls was, a pain in the backside. But I fixed that problem. I fitted some aftermarket steering wheel controls to the Ram, which I will do a separate review on, because if you're interested in that, I've gone through a couple of different steering wheel controls, and the ones that I've landed on now, I'm really, really pleased with. So if you're interested in steering wheel controls, that video will be coming up, and I think would be worth watching if you're interested in that. But steering wheel controls. On the Hilux has factory steering wheel controls. Now, I like these head units so much that a friend of mine came to me and said, look, you know a bit about car audio, could you do an install for me? So that's fine. He said, what head unit do you recommend? I said, well, I've just got this Xtrons one. It's a cheap brand. For what it's worth, I think it's pretty good, but you got to get what you want. He had a bit of a play around with it, liked it, bought one, and then he decided he was going to install it himself. That's fine. And he went to a audio specialty store in a capital city, told them he had this head unit, he wanted to put it in his Hilux and didn't want to lose his steering wheel controls. And they sold him an AirPro steering wheel control harness. Fair enough. He wired it in, followed all the controls, and he's got half of them to work. And speaking to my local auto electrician, he said, on another matter, he said that's actually a fairly common fault, and he tells people when they ask him to do a head unit upgrade that just forget about your steering wheel controls, then just take it that they're not going to work. When I did mine, I didn't want to get a $100 steering wheel control patch harness, because I was pretty sure that I could just find the wires for the steering wheel control and wire it directly into key 1 and key 2 at the back of the head unit, which I did. And the reason that you can do that with the Xtrons unit is because the head unit includes an option to map your steering wheel controls. It actually has all that in there. So it'll read the input from your key 1, key 2 controls off your factory steering wheel controls, and you can map them to what you want them to do. That's basically what a steering wheel control patch harness will do for you. You put that in the line in between your factory loom and the head unit, and it will read the inputs in and then tell the head unit, oh, that's volume up, that's skip, that's answer phone, whatever. That's what the patch harness does. Now, I've bypassed that and just wired it straight into the dash and just gone key 1, key 2 earth, and then map the buttons. That's on the Hilux. Works without issue. All of the buttons work. On old mate's vehicle, I've told him, I said, look, you want to bring it around one day, we'll rip that stupid harness out of there and we'll just wire it straight in on your key 1, key 2 inputs, and then we'll map your buttons and you'll have all your buttons working on it. It's the same year Hilux as mine, although his is SR5, he's got some additional buttons. I don't think that that's going to be a concern, but that's a real benefit, because that, on some head units, you are required to get a patch lead if you want the steering wheel controls to work. So that's another expense that you have to add to your head unit cost. Your installation cost will include that patch lead. With the Xtrons unit, as long as you can find out what your steering wheel control wires are, what's key 1, what's key 2, what's earth, so you can wire them into the back of this head unit, you should be able to map your buttons so that all your factory steering wheel controls continue to work post-installation. And for me, I kind of bought this first head unit without the option to have steering wheel controls, so no harm, no foul. But after owning the Hilux, if I bought a car that had steering wheel controls and I wanted to upgrade the head unit, and I knew that upgrading the head unit would get rid of the steering wheel controls, I probably wouldn't do it. It'd have to be a really compelling reason to get me to do that, because I like my steering wheel controls and I want to be able to use them, and it's a pain not to have them functioning. So that would I think that would be pretty much a deal breaker for me. But other people may disagree, and that's perfectly fine if you don't want your steering wheels to work anymore, or you want to go the patch lead harness route. But another really compelling reason to buy this head unit for me is that ability to program your steering wheel controls on the head unit. So, all up, as I said, would I buy it again? Yes, I would. In fact, I have. I've been very impressed with the Xtrons head unit. The installation is good because you can just go straight off a ISO plug to an AirPro or similar connector. All the options that I wanted in a head unit and some more, like the digital radio, which I don't need, but it's there, that's fine. The dash cam, Android operating system, being able to connect to all my phone and all that, and, you know, fairly standard on a head unit now, but coming off the factory head unit from this, you couldn't connect your phone. Being able to do all that is a real benefit to me. It did everything I wanted the head unit to do for a very low price, which was actually ended up cheaper than if I just bought basically a 7-inch equivalent from a brand name that didn't have Android operating system. It didn't have a dash cam integration. It didn't have a GPS. It was quite compelling, remains compelling, and the quality of the head unit, I think it looks really nice. I think it does have a pseudo factory appearance to it. When you turn the car on, you can customize what the boot up screen is. So on the Land Cruiser and the Hilux, when you turn the key on, it comes up with Toyota. It just looks like it's supposed to be there. Even on the Ram, I thought, oh, well, I might just have to put a generic boot up screen. No, every make of vehicle, including Ram, is an option on there. You turn the key on the Ram, up comes the Ram logo. It just looks like it's supposed to be there. I know it's not, but it doesn't look chintzy or cheap. It does actually look like that's how the vehicle came for all intents and purposes, albeit there is a fascia mounting kit that is partially visible from the installation. But anyway, that might be the cost you have to pay with any double. Well, it is the cost you have to pay with any double din head unit pretty much. So I've been really happy with it. I'll give you a closer look. I'll click through the interface a little bit to wind this video up. So this is the Xtrons head unit fitted to a 100 series Land Cruiser, 6.95 inches size screen, and with an Android in it. So we go to our apps, and here's all our app settings: YouTube, Play Store, Equalizer, Maps, Google itself, Spotify, steering wheel control configuration. If you want to edit your steering wheel controls, there we go. So we haven't got any of those configured because there's currently no steering wheel controls on this vehicle. But this is when you push a steering wheel control, one of these will light up, and then you can, one of the numbers will light up, and you just push and hold the button that you want to allocate that steering wheel control to, and the app will do the rest. So you can configure your steering wheel controls. That's video player if you've got something attached you want to watch video on. Maps Go and Waze. I find Waze an absolutely brilliant navigation app. It's free. It's very accurate in projecting time. UCam, that's your dash cam. So that's out the back, the muddy window of my back window at the moment. That's how you can use that. I use that on this car basically to, as an additional reversing, not as a reversing camera, rather a rear vision mirror while you're driving along. The Talk app, if you've got a Bluetooth OBD attached, you can connect through that. There's anything on the Google Play Store you can theoretically install on this. I don't have a whole lot of apps on here. The only real apps that I want are the map apps. I've got my podcasting app on here. The Talk app is useful. Apart from that, I don't really have a whole lot of use for apps on the phone, but the rest of your apps you can find on here. Bluetooth to connect your phone. If you're getting audio through the phone, settings for it. It's a very easy interface. It's sharp. There's no real lag in startup or in general use. It all runs fairly promptly, so I have no issues with any of that. I found it to be quite a reliable head unit. As I said, so much so that I've put one in all 3 of my vehicles. So if you're looking for a cost-effective head unit, as I said, like, it fits in there nice. It's just a plain black trim. It looks like a factory head unit, which is the principal thing I like about it. That's your default screen with your time and date. I find it quite good in terms of appearance just in the car. It doesn't look outlandish and doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. So that's why I like it and why I've gone and imported 3 of them. So if you are looking for a new head unit, I've found that my Xtrons experience has been very good. And if you're looking for something of that nature, then it may be worth you giving Xtron a go as well. I hope this was useful to you. Thank you for watching.